Hey guys, V-Man here. I got a comic book the other day, and I was so excited to get home and read it. I actually read most of it in the car because, well, actually that's a lie. I read most of it in the line. Well, I had half of it read before I even got to the line. But anyway, it's Star Trek, the Q Gambit. And it's one of those ones where I never thought I'd see this. I honestly didn't. And it's a six-part series. I've got the first one. I'm not keeping it for collecting or anything. I don't really care right now. But the story was really good. And I'm going to spoil it for you. So anyone that doesn't want to be spoiled with this, don't go any further. So it starts off. It's in the future. It's a little bit after Spock and Nero go back in time. But it takes place in the regular universe of Star Trek The Next Generation. And Picard's on board the Enterprise E. Now, Picard was an ambassador to Vulcan. Yeah, ambassador to Vulcan. And Q, he gets his tea Earl Grey hot, and then all of a sudden, Q pops in. And he talks to Picard about, how does it feel to be just an ambassador, a guest on board your ship that you used to command, and how does it feel to have Data, your android being the captain and whatnot. Again, so if you haven't read the prelude to the Star Trek movie from '09, like you don't know any of that stuff. But yeah, Data is alive in the timeline and whatnot, and he's captain of the Enterprise. I didn't really care for that whole comic book, so I don't like that alternate future that we have. To me, it really reminds me a lot of the future from All Good Things. Like, I'm not happy with it. I'm glad Data's alive, but the whole thing, it didn't surprise me, nor did I give half a shit when I saw he was alive. But anyway, so Q sits there, kind of antagonizes him. I don't see why it worked. Him talking trash to Picard, bothered Picard. I don't see why it would have. I just think they did it, to kind of have, reminisce some, the writers, for Picard and Q to go back and forth, which then Q's like, yeah, Spock's still alive. He's in an alternate timeline. And Picard's like, no, don't tell me about an alternate timeline. We got to keep it separate. And I'm like, what? Like, how does that fucking make sense? Like, why wouldn't you want to know about your friend that you just lost, that you're being all butthurt about? Why wouldn't you want to know that he's alive in an alternate timeline in their past? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but okay, whatever. I just think it was kind of a cop-out, and, I don't think the whole scene should have even been there to begin with, because it had no point. So then Q disappears and goes to the Enterprise from the J.J. Abrams universe. Kirk walks into a turbo lift and turns around, and then turns back around and he sees Q right there. He's like, oh, I didn't notice you were here. And Q's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's all good. Peachy keen, hunky dory. And then he tells Kirk, he's like, yeah, I like your bridge a lot better than the beige one. And, then he leaves the turbo lift and everything. And Kirk's sitting there going, beige. And of course, that's a reference to the, Star Trek The Next Generation bridge, being all brown and beige and crap. To which, again, I'm sitting there going, I don't really think Q would say something like that. Like, why would he? The joke's not funny to anyone but him. To me, it was very out of Q. Q really didn't act like Q up to this point. It's just the visuals were great. The art is wonderful in the book, but the story, like, that was just kind of, why is he saying all these things? Like, none of it makes sense. Why did he go to Picard just to go back to the past, just to tell Kirk some stuff? Like, it didn't make any sense to me. So I'm hoping in the next 5 issues that it gives us something to kind of explain why he's acting weird. But then he sits there and kind of puts Kirk through another Kobayashi Maru where there's... Oh, shit. What was the name of that? Give me just a second, guys. I'm not very prepared. I just got done fully reading this again. Where's it at? Oh, well, I can't see it. I'm not going to bore you guys sitting there watching me flip through pages. But anyway, like, I think it was like Safeguard was the name of the ship, I think. But anyway, whatever the name of that ship was that they're going to help, um, all of a sudden, like, two Klingon ships show up, and they're trying, the Enterprise is trying to save the ship. So they start trying to fight the Klingons, to stop them so they can go rescue the ship. Then all of a sudden, like, three more Klingon ships to cloak. So there's like a total of five Klingon ships, and they just fuck the Enterprise up. And the Enterprise explodes. And then all of a sudden they go back to the bridge where Q's sitting there going, to which I'm like, okay, that's Q-like. Like, this is the first time the Q's starting to act like Q. Okay, all right, right on, no problem. I'm following. And then he takes Kirk. Kirk and him kind of go, back and forth on a couple of things, to which it's, nothing really sitting there, it not great high caliber stuff, but, interesting. And then Q transports Kirk and him on the hull of the Enterprise, the saucer section. And Uhura figures it out, where she's like, oh, the name of that ship translated in Japanese is Kobayashi. Well, of course, Q just put him through the Kobayashi Maru again. And it was to kind of show him that you can't win in these situations. You think you can, but you can't. You think there's always a way out of the no-win scenario, but there's really not. Again, that seemed like something that Q would do. So again, like that really interested me, because I was like, yeah, that's something that Q would actually, like, he'd go to those lengths to show you that you're wrong. It reminded me a lot of in the episode of Q Who, where he kicks the Enterprise into the Borg space, and basically tells Picard, if you're going to be out here, you're going to get a bloody nose from time to time. And that's kind of what this reminded me of. Q has a point, and you're just waiting to see what it is. Well, then by the end of the by the end of the comic, Q sends Kirk back to the bridge or whatnot, and they're trying to figure out where they are. And it was in the most shocking reveal, and honestly, like, this one panel made me buy the whole comic. Because usually, like, I'll look at a toy, an action figure, or a comic, and I'll take a picture of it, because I love, I'm a picture whore. I love taking pictures. But I don't really like to buy anything, because I'm, not that I don't have the money for it, but I'm kind of cheap that way, because it's like I'd rather spend my money on other stuff, stuff that I desperately want, and when I saw this panel, I was like, screw it, it's only going to be $4, $4 or $5. But it was a picture of, Q had not only transported them in another area of space, but another time, and he transported them to Deep Space Nine, and I'll show you guys the picture. This right here. Like that right there, like, seeing all the Dominion ships, like in the background, like right here, there's a Ferengi ship in the background. There's a Romulan ship right there. There's a Klingon Datinga class ship right there. And there's so many other ships in the background, but these three right here, are Dominion ships. And so, like, I'm sitting there going, there's no Defiant on this ship. The Romulans weren't, when the Dominion took over the station, the Romulans weren't around the space station at the time. The Ferengi certainly weren't there at the time. And the Klingons definitely weren't, because the Klingons were allied with the Federation. So I'm wondering if, like, this future is a future of, like, this timeline. And it just, I don't know, like, visually, like, I was very taken aback by it. And the cover for the next album, or for the next comic, is this. Let me get that so you can see it. Oh, the light's kind of, there we go. That's the cover for the next one. And that's got my boy Cisco, like Captain Cisco right there, man. Like, bald goatee, Captain Cisco, man. Like that, like, I saw that, I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. Like, I don't even care if it's an alternate timeline version of these characters. Like, that is just really cool to see that these characters exist in some, future point in this universe. Because it's got to be a lot different, especially since they destroyed Vulcan already. But I don't know. Like, I got really excited about this. I'd recommend buying it. Any of you guys, if you're a Q fan, just from the fanboy, it was only like, I think, 20 pages. Once you took out all the ads and whatnot, like, it was only 20 pages, but $5 for 20 pages ain't too bad. But just to see Q, interacting with the crew from the classic Enterprise, or at least the J.J. Abrams universe, like that like that was kind of worth it to me to buy. You know, and I'll buy the rest of the series because I find that type of stuff cool. Because of course, with John Delancey being old now, I saw him at Comic Con. Like, the dude's old. Um, there's no way he'll be able to play Q. I hope that they somehow can get him back. Kind of do like what they did with Professor X and Magneto and X3. Like, do the aging thing properly this time though, but do that with Q. For like the 50th anniversary of Star Trek in the new movie, because it's going to be released in the same year. So I'm hoping like Q somehow comes in that universe, because I think that would be really cool to have Q, somehow fix the timeline, or I don't know, give us fans nods to shit. Like I just want something more than a movie, and I don't know. This comic kind of gave that to me, so I don't know. I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you're a fan of comic books, buy it. If you're a fan of Star Trek, buy it. If you're a fan of Q, buy it. If you're a fan of mine, buy it. I don't know. Like, it's just like, if you've read it, let me know. I'm really curious to find out what anyone else's thoughts are on it. It wasn't a great book, but it's not. It's off to a good start. So, all right, guys. I will catch you guys later. Keep on geeking on.